For nearly 2 decades, James Whitey Bulger was one of the most feared criminals in America. A ruthless mob boss who ruled Boston's underworld with an iron fist, leaving behind a trail of blood and betrayal. But what made him even more dangerous? He was also an FBI informant. This is the story of Whitey Bulger, the Boston Boogeyman. Welcome to the Crime Expert Channel, your true place of crime stories and analysis. Born in 1929, James Whitey Bulger grew up in the rough neighborhoods of South Boston. As a kid, he earned his nickname Whitey due to his blonde hair, a name he despised. By his teenage years, Whitey was already deep in crime, running with street gangs and robbing banks. His criminal ways landed him in prison, where he took part in secret CIA experiments involving LSD, a twisted chapter that left its mark. After serving time in Alcatraz, Bulger returned to Boston a changed man. But instead of going straight, he climbed the ranks of the Irish-American Winter Hill Gang. By the 1970s, Whitey Bulger had become a feared enforcer. His specialty? Extortion, loan sharking, and eliminating anyone who got in his way. But Whitey wasn't just another gangster. He played a different game, one that made him untouchable. The secret? The FBI. Bulger became an informant, feeding the FBI information on rival gangs in exchange for protection. His handler, Agent John Connolly, was a childhood friend, a relationship that would shield Bulger from law enforcement for years. With federal protection, Whitey was free to expand his empire. He controlled the drug trade, ran illegal gambling rings, and terrorized South Boston. Those who dared to cross Whitey Bulger met a gruesome fate. He was responsible for at least 19 murders, some committed with chilling brutality. But as his body count grew, so did suspicions about his ties to the FBI. How was he avoiding arrests for decades? By the mid-1990s, the truth about Whitey's FBI protection was unraveling. When authorities finally decided to arrest him, he vanished. For 16 years, Whitey Bulger became one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives, hiding in plain sight. He lived under false identities, traveling across the U.S. with his longtime girlfriend, Catherine Gregg. Rumors swirled about where he was. Some said he was in Europe, others believed he was dead. But in 2011, a tip led the FBI to a quiet apartment in Santa Monica, California. After years of running, the Whitey was finally caught. In 2013, Whitey Bulger was convicted of 11 murders and multiple crimes. He was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison. But his story didn't end there. In 2018, Whitey Bulger was transferred to a high-security prison in West Virginia. Within hours of his arrival, he was brutally murdered by fellow inmates.
The man who killed Boston crime boss James Whitey Bulger learning his fate. 57-year-old Freddie Gias was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Prosecutors said he repeatedly hit the 89-year-old Bulger in the head with a lock attached to a belt hours after Bulger arrived at a West Virginia prison in 2018. Gias is already serving a life sentence for previous violent crimes. Bulger was a major figure in organized crime in Boston in the 70s and 80s. He went into hiding in 1994, just before he was going to be indicted on a number of charges. Bulger was captured more than 16 years later and then convicted in 11 killings and dozens of other crimes.
Some say it was revenge. Others believe it was an inside job to silence him forever. Whitey Bulger's reign of terror ended in betrayal, blood, and prison walls. But his name remains legendary in the world of crime. Was he a ruthless killer, a master manipulator, or just another pawn in a corrupt system?